Hi, I'm Muhammad Nabil Amshar bin Rozamani from Course Diploma in Graphic Design. My matrix number is DGD191009, and today I'm going to present about composition. Composition introduction. Now that we know the general definition of the terms composition, it is not too hard to figure out its meaning in photography. Simply put, composing an image means arranging elements within in a way that suit the core idea or goal of your work best. Arranging elements can be done by actually moving the objects or subjects. A good example for this case is portrait or still life photography. Street photography involves anticipation since the photography doesn't usually have the choice moving his subject himself, but has to wait for them to take the most suitable position within the frame. Another way of arranging elements is by changing your own position. Such a way is appropriate in circumstances that do not allow the photographer to physically move anything, like landscape photography. Next, we jump into balance. Balance in photography is observed when an image has subject areas that look balanced throughout the composition. It is achieved by shifting the frame and just posing subjects within it so subjects, tones, and color are equal visual weight. An image is balanced when subject areas command a viewer attention equally. There are two main techniques of balance, formal and informal. However, there are also kinds of formal and informal techniques that photographers have been practicing to balance out lightness and heaviness, varying shape, and even meanings behind a composition. Next, we have 5 categories of balance. First, streamically balanced. In streamically balanced photos, both sides of the frame have equal weight and may even mirror each other. Second, astronomical balance. Astronomical balance, also known as informal balance, take the image of the window and bite above. Not only are the subjects placed on the left and right sides of the frame, they complement each other by varying in size, thus creating balance in both size and subject placement. Third, another interesting way to create astronomical balance is by using colors. As you can imagine, a photo with too many vibrant colors such as reds and orange may make an image look overwhelming. Color balance can be achieved by balancing out a small area of vibrant color with a larger area of neutral or more pastel colors and vice versa. Fourth, this kind of astronomical balance is best observed in monochromatic or black and white image where different tones are easily distinguishable. In this case, tonal balance is seen in terms of contrast between lighter and darker areas within an image. And this is the last one, conceptual balance. Conceptual balance is the more philosophical types of astronomical balance, where two subjects complement each other and are different beyond size, shape, and form. In many cases, conceptual balance is achieved in an image where there are two contrasting textures or meanings behind each subject. That said, it is obviously harder to compose a conceptual balance image, as it usually takes more than just a tilt of the frame. Simplicity. Simplicity is the photography equivalent of minimalism. It's a photographic composition technique that concentrates on keeping only the absolutely necessary information in frame. You could be easily fooled into thinking that simple composition is simple and not thought out. Simplicity refers to one of the most important photography composition rules. Simplicity states that simplifying the image background can be draw viewers' attention to the subjects of interest in a photograph and help them better comprehend and appreciate it. Understand whether a photo respects photography rules or not facilitates photo quality assessment. Along with the simplicity of a scene, there is another element at play, the structure of your composition itself. The same way that landscapes vary in their complexity, so do the structures of your photograph. Even images of the same scene can have different levels of complexity. Some will be simpler, clearer, and more readable than the others. Rule of thirds. In photography, the rule of thirds is a type of composition in which an image is divided eventually into thirds both horizontally and vertically, and the subject of the image is placed at the intersection of those dividing lines or along one of the lines itself. What is the rule of thirds? The basic principle behind the rule of thirds is to imagine breaking an image down into thirds, both horizontal and vertically, so that you have 9 parts as follows. This is example of rule of thirds. Rule of golden ratio. The golden ratio is a ratio approximately 1.618 to 1. Artists have used this ratio for centuries to create works of art from paintings to architecture. Beethoven used it in his famous Fifth Symphony. It truly is all around us, including in our own bodies. To see and understand the golden ratio, let's take a line and divide it into 2 sections. If we follow the golden ratio, it will like the image below, where A is the long side and B is the shorter side. For artists, the power of the golden ratio begins as this ratio is applied to other shapes. Let's first construct what is called a golden rectangle. We do this by taking the long side of the line that we label A and matching that length to form the shorter sides of the rectangle. Some have called the rule of thirds an oversimplified version of the golden ratio, and if you think about it, you can see why. By adding another vertical line to the golden rectangle, you will have a very close facsimile of the rule of thirds. This is the example pictures of rule of golden ratio. Next we have perspective in photography. Perspective in photography is defined as the sense of depth or spatial relationship between objects in a photo along with their dimension with respect to what viewer of the image sees. By changing perspective, subject can appear much smaller or larger than normal. Lines can coverage differently and much more. You can really have a lot of fun with changing your normal perspective in photography. When you learn to see things and capture image from a totally different perspective, you can produce some really interesting, beautiful and sometimes powerful image that will draw the viewer eyes into the photo. You can even evoke a certain emotion just by playing with a few different angles. Changing perspective will most likely to you out of your comfort zone as far as you positioning yourself and your camera. But when you begin to look at different objects, subjects, and the world in general on a totally different level, you can take your photography skills to a whole new level. Here are some different perspectives. Perspective 1. Photograph up or down. Perspective 2. Lie down and shoot from ground level. Perspective 3. Photograph through objects. Perspective 4. Fill the frame. Perspective 5. Place something in the foreground. Perspective 6. Mirror and reflection. Line in photography. Using lines in photography is a great way to strengthen your composition. Different types of lines create a different effects. What is a line in photography definition? A line in a photo is a point that moves leading towards something. Some lines are obvious and some are implied. The viewer's eye are naturally drawn along lines. This can be vertical lines, curved lines, diagonal lines, and even strong horizontal lines. Leading lines are one of the most useful elements in photography. They can be used to create powerful images with a strong visual impact. Leading lines help draw the eye into the image and focus the viewer's attention on the main subjects. They are also an excellent means of creating depth and symmetry. First, we talk about vertical lines. Vertical lines have the ability to convey a variety of different moods in a photograph ranging from power and strength. Think of skyscrapers to growth. Think of trees. Why use vertical lines in composition? This is the reason. For something to stand out tall and straight, strength is required. To appear confident and in control, we stand up straight. So, it makes sense that the vertical lines in photography generate the same feeling in us. Even the width of the lines impacts a photo. Heavy vertical lines lend strength and dignity to the composition and the photo feels more stable. On the other hand, these lines very vulnerable. Our eyes follow lines in photos, which is why leading lines are so powerful in photography composition. When scanning a photo, our eyes move from left to right rather than up and down. So vertical lines work well to lead the viewer eyes upwards. Next we have horizontal line. There's something about a horizontal line is an image that conveys a message of stability or even rest. Horizon, fallen trees, ocean, sleeping peoples. All of these subjects have something about them that speaks either of permanency and timeliness or rest. Horizons are the most common horizontal line to be found in photographs, and they often act as a dividing points in a photograph. In effect, and ensure that the rest of the image is formed around. Keep in mind that unbroken horizon can often lead to a photograph feeling somewhat static or dull, and a good strategy is to use other shapes in the landscape you are photographed to break things up and give a point of interest, mountains, trees, and buildings. Horizon should generally not be placed in the middle of your frame. This leaves an image feeling unsettled compositionally. A much more effective technique is to place them in the upper or lower third of your frame. We also have diagonal line photography. Diagonal lines generally work well to draw the eye of an image viewers through the photograph. They create points of interest as they intersect with other lines, and they often give images depth by suggesting perspective. Diagonal lines can also add a sense of action to an image and add a dynamic looks and feel. Consider how you might use diagonal lines to lead the eye of your photograph main subjects or points of interest. Different studies have been done into how people view image, and many of them say that a natural way into an image is by traveling left to right, and so a diagonal line starting at the bottom left and moving to the top right of an image can be quite useful and natural. This is the last one, curved lines in photography. Curved lines in a photograph create an effect completely different to that of straight lines. Curved lines have the effect of slowing the photograph down and suggesting time passing. Because a curved line takes longer to get from point A to point B, it suggests a tranquil, restful mood and having time to get there. What are curved lines used for? They create a place for the eye to rest. So you can use curve to draw attention and highlight an area where you want to place a focal point.